What's happening, everybody? Welcome in on today's show. Week 5 of the SEC really seemed to separate the contenders from the pretenders. Some magical seasons came crashing to a halt, and some hot seats started to get warmer. We'll give you our winners and losers from Week 5 in SEC football. Let's jump into it.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Winner. And now, your winners of the weekend.
Real winners win. You know you can get a winner, because I'm a winner, yeah, I'm a winner.
And we start with our winners of the weekend. Look, they're in here every week. I said pencil them in every week. They'll be in every week. It's the Georgia defense. They are here every week, and I continue to be amazed every week by the Georgia defense. They just seem to get better and better. We know how good Arkansas was coming into this weekend. They got absolutely humbled over in Athens. Georgia's defense held them to just 75 rush yards, 162 total yards of offense, 3 for 12 on third downs. Keep in mind, this is the same Arkansas offense that moved the ball all day on Texas and Texas A&M. They could do nothing versus this Georgia front. Devontae Wyatt led the way with 6 tackles and 1.5 sacks. Nakobe Dean also with 1.5 sacks. Adam Anderson had 1. Suffocating defense for Georgia. Up next, a road trip to Auburn. By the way, last time Georgia recorded back-to-back shutouts in SEC games was 1980. That's right, the year of its last national championship season. That's how special this defense is. Kirby Smart even said after the game, they're playing on a 1980 level. It is crazy to see. Another winner of the weekend, I'm going with the Alabama running game. Look, offensive line play was very good this week for Alabama, much better. They mixed some things up to open up those run lanes, getting guys in motion, pre-snap stuff. I talked last week about Alabama they ranked 10th in the SEC in rushing, and that's just not where we're used to seeing Bama. They got back to running the football much better this week, over 200 ground yards, but in particular, it was Brian Robinson Jr. with the breakout game, 36 carries, 171 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. It was by far his best game in his 5 seasons in Tuscaloosa. And perhaps now he's showing the Alabama coaching staff he can be that Najee Harris workhorse moving forward. See if they opt to give him some larger workloads. Another winner of the weekend. How about the Kentucky defense? I'm just a week removed from raving about how much I really liked Emory Jones and what he did last week against Tennessee. But this week, the Kentucky defense in Lexington really, really played well. Made things very difficult on Florida and Dan Mullen. They got a big blocked field goal return for a score. Florida did put up a lot of yardage, but it was hollow. They were just 4 for 13 on third downs, 0 for 1 on fourth down. Emory Jones threw an interception, just 13 total points. To put that in perspective, this was an offense averaging 36 points per game coming in, and to be held to just 13, a great job by Mark Stoops' group. DeAndre Square was everywhere with 13 tackles. Jaquez Jones had 9 tackles. Josh Paschal, J.J. Weaver. These guys are all over the field. Just a monster win for Kentucky, particularly coming up with the goal line stand in the final minute to secure the victory. Congrats to Kentucky. They remain undefeated. Another winner of the weekend, Bo Nix, man. Start the Bo Nix redemption tour. Just a great story. We all know Bo Nix got benched by Brian Harsin just a week ago in that game against Georgia State. And a lot of people thought TJ Finley was going to be the guy to get to start going to Baton Rouge. A rockin' sold-out Tiger Stadium. But Brian Harsin opted to go back to Nix. And if you just look at the box score, his numbers weren't all that pretty. He completed just 23 of 44 passes, 1 passing touchdown, 12 carries for 74 yards, a rushing score. But if you watch the game, there were times where Bo Nix was untackleable, shedding LSU defenders throughout the night, keeping plays alive with his feet. Keep in mind, LSU was one of the leaders in the country in sacks. They didn't get one on Bo Nix. They got to him all right, but they couldn't bring the man to the ground. Some miraculous throws to find some open receivers. Bo Nix made all the big plays he needed to. and Auburn pulls off the 24-19 upset on the road at LSU, I think it is safe to say Bo Nix's job, it's his job again for the foreseeable future. Only problem is next up is Georgia. So Bo Nix may come back down to earth a little bit this week, but hey, everybody comes back down to earth when they play Georgia's defense. Another winner of the weekend. How about Tyon Evans and the Vols rushing attack? Man, last week we heard Tyon Evans. He was asked in the media session about Missouri's issues trying to stop the run. And Evans said, quote, "We're going to have some fun." Well, he and his teammates did just that. The Vols put up almost 700 yards of offense on Missouri and we're out to a 62-24 dominating SEC win. The Vols, they jumped out. They were up 28-3 in the first quarter. It was a straight-up butt-kicking. Tyon Evans had 15 carries for 156 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. I thought Hendon Hooker played very well, too. It would seem like he's the guy now with Joe Milton still out. But Hooker had 80 rushing yards, 4 total touchdowns. Great bounce-back performance after losing in the Swamp a week prior. Now I get another winnable game for the Vols at home this weekend, hosting South Carolina. But after that performance over the weekend, the Vols, they are now second in the SEC in rush yards per game and top 10 in the country in rushing yards per game. Quite the performance from the Vols and their run attack. Our last winner of the weekend, I've got Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. Look, sure, it seems like this was one of the awful games of the weekend. You probably only saw the highlights if you saw any of it, but taking on a winless UConn team in Nashville, the Commodores able to kick a game-winning field goal in the final seconds to get the 30-28 win, and Vandy improves to 2-3. Clark Lee and Vandy snapped a 7-game home losing streak. You take wins any way you can get them, even ugly ones. Vandy now has 7 games remaining on the season. All of them are SEC games. They go to Florida this Saturday. So, look, there's a chance they don't win another game the rest of the year. So that UConn win was one Vandy absolutely needed to have. So congrats to Clark Lee and Vanderbilt. Wins are hard to come by. Just ask some of the other folks around the SEC, particularly the losers. And that's who we're going to get to next. Thanks again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll get to the losers of the weekend. Hey, real quick, need to remind you guys about our friends over at Prize Picks. If you are a college football fanatic, you've heard about Prize Picks. It is daily fantasy made easy. I love them, and I know you will love them too. They are the leader in college sports daily fantasy. They offer more college football props than anyone in the world. Any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. And all of our users that deposit and use our promo code, which is Locked On, LOCKEDON, you're going to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks allows you to mix sports as well. Use their award-winning app on both the, you can find it on the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. Prize Picks is safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate. Go check them out. PrizePicks.com. Use our promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON. Or go to your app store, download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Another one of our friends we need to tell you about is a company we've talked about for a while, and that is Made In. When we talk about your favorite restaurant consistently making such delicious food, how do they do it? They have great professional quality cookware, and that's what Made In has. If you're serious in cooking, you should invest in your kitchen tools. Made In's cookware and kitchenware products are used by thousands of the world's best chefs. I'm telling you right now, I got one of their pans a couple months back, and we use it for everything. It is easy to clean. Nothing sticks to it. You can literally use it multiple times a week, multiple times in the same day. Just rinse it off, clean it, and you're good to go. Made In produces professional quality cookware for those who love to cook. Distributes heat evenly, can easily go from the stovetop to the oven, whatever you need. It is made in better cookware for better needs. Go check them out right now. They are offering our listeners 15% off your first order with the promo code Locked On. It's the best discount available anywhere online for made-in purchases. Go to madeincookware.com/locked on. Use our promo code Locked On. Get 15% off your first order. That's madeincookware.com/locked on. Try them today. I guarantee you are going to like what you get from Made In. Run along here, Locked On SEC. We gave you our winners of the weekend. Now it's time to get to our losers of the weekend, and there were a lot of it, man. This weekend was rough around the SEC for some teams. We start with the Arkansas offense, man. We know that Georgia defense is so good, but the Arkansas offense, they had been humming this season. They were just stifled. Arkansas loses at Georgia 37-0. They're held to just 10 first downs, just 156 yards. Sam Pittman said the Georgia D-line just whipped Arkansas's O-line, said they beat them up physically, they couldn't block them, the Razorbacks couldn't get off their blocks. And we knew KJ Jefferson was not 100% at quarterback. Malik Hornsby eventually came into the game for him late. But the penalties killed him too. Arkansas had 13 penalties for over 100 yards. When they came out to run their offense, they didn't even run a play, and they got not one, but two early false start penalties. It was just a debacle. Now, look, the Georgia fans brought it. It was a loud, rocking atmosphere in between the hedges, but, man, that Arkansas offense, I just expected a little bit more out of them. If you've been on Arkansas plus the 16 where the line was much of last week, you were disappointed because they did not score a point. Very disappointing in the Arkansas offense. Another one of our losers of the weekend, I got Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, man. All the trash talking last week, everything about, the hype. Matt Corral is special. He's on the Heisman list. Lane Kiffin's offense is going to do wonders. They're going to give Alabama a game. Look, that Alabama defense absolutely won the day. They held Ole Miss scoreless at the half, stopping them on multiple fourth down attempts. I think even Lane Kiffin was questioning some of his own decision-making after the game, leaving scoring opportunities out on the field. I guess we can go ahead and put to bed Matt Corral's Heisman chances. Just 213 passing yards, 1 touchdown. He had 10 carries for a net 3 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. But the Ole Miss run game that had been good all this year and all last year, remember how good they ran the football? Just 78 yards on 34 attempts. Henry Parrish, Snoop Connor, Jerrion Ealy, all bottled up. I can't remember the last time an Ole Miss offense was held to under 300 total yards since Lane Kiffin took over. A humbling performance for Ole Miss, as they did score some touchdowns late to make the score look a little bit more respectable, losing 42-21, but it wasn't even that close. It was a debacle. And Lane Kiffin, it is back to the drawing board. Man, he tried to play, we're just little old Ole Miss. Yeah, you looked like little old Ole Miss out there, not being able to hang with the big boys in Alabama. Another loser of the weekend, I got Coach O, Ed Ogeron. The rumblings in Baton Rouge are getting loud. A lot of the big money LSU people were unhappy with Coach O after he went 5-5 last season. Now, he got a little bit of a pass because he was coming off of that undefeated national championship season. But then those folks got angry again when LSU opened the season with a loss on the road to UCLA. A lot of people paid a lot of money to go out there and watch LSU and take on a Pac-12 team. But okay, they thought maybe they could turn this thing around. And then we see LSU let Auburn outscore them 14-0 in the fourth quarter Saturday night in Tiger Stadium, losing to Auburn, falling to 3-2 on the year. And now the natives are getting restless. And many are saying if Ogeron goes 7-5 or worse, he will be out of a job. The biggest concern for LSU right now is their inconsistency on offense. They have no identity. Passing game is inconsistent at times, but the biggest problem is their lack of a running game. With just their running backs this weekend, LSU ran the ball for just 13 times for a total of 46 yards. This is LSU, who used to wake up and fall out of bed with 200 rushing yards. Now they can't even get 3-4 yards a carry. It is a monster problem. It doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon. And could spell more losses for LSU and Ogeron. And could that mean the end of Coach O that quick? in Baton Rouge after winning a national championship 2 years removed. Another loser of the weekend, I got Emory Jones in the Florida offense. Look, I mentioned it earlier. The numbers weren't terrible for Emory Jones this week. Still threw for over 200 yards and a touchdown. Did have his lowest rushing total with 63 rush yards. You compare that to the 144 he had on the ground last week against Tennessee. But the Florida offense was just kind of clunky at times. They couldn't finish drives. And honestly, we probably forget all those stats if the Gators are able to punch it into the end zone at the end of regulation, send that game to overtime. But instead, they are turned over on downs. They lose 20-13. The 13 points, really the biggest number to me. That tied the fewest amount of points scored in the Dan Mullen era in Gainesville. You got to go back to 2018. There was a game he beat Mississippi State. The Gators won 13-6. That's the only other time they've scored that few points on a Dan Mullen coach team in Florida. So a tough loss for them. And Emory Jones and company, they're going to have to figure it out and figure it out quick. Another loser of the weekend, Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. Hey, you remember all that preseason hype the Aggies got? Preseason top 10, people thinking they could be a playoff team. They came so close last year. Heck, I thought maybe they could beat Bama. That game's coming up this week. But the Aggies are in a whole heap of trouble after losing a home game to Mississippi State and Mike Leach this week, 26-22. The Aggies are now 3-2 overall, 0-2 in the conference. And now you host Bama this week, so it's looking like you're going to start 0-3 in the SEC. It was just a month ago Jimbo Fisher signed a contract extension that upped his salary to $7.5 million a year. Eventually, he is going to have to deliver results on the field. A big reason for the fall, I get it, was losing quarterback Haynes King to injury. Zach Calzada has just not played well enough for the Aggies. So someone told me this weekend, Zach Calzada is not an SEC quarterback. And if you look at his numbers outside of the New Mexico game, he has thrown for just 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. It will not get any prettier this weekend with Bama coming to town. Another loser of the weekend, I've got Missouri. Coach Eli Drinkwitz, he is having some issues in year 2 at Mizzou. One of the biggest problems is stopping the run. They gave up over 450 rush yards this past week to Tennessee. Their defensive line coach, Jethro Franklin, was fired following the game. And now they are sitting at 2-3 on the season. And they still need to play Georgia, Florida, Arkansas, A&M. More losses could be on the way for Mizzou. And it doesn't look like Drinkwitz is taking that step forward in year 2 in Como. And there you have it. Those are our losers of the weekend. When we return, I'll give you some honorable mentions, some people who maybe don't fall in the winner category or loser category. But thanks again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We'll give you our honorable mentions next. Need to remind you guys about our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar is still the best tasting protein bar ever. 9 delicious flavors, from the coconut to the cherry to the raspberry mint brownie. My personal favorite. There is something for everyone. I remind you all the time, if you haven't tried them all, you can get a mixed box where you'll get 2 of each of their 9 flavors. Something for everyone in there. And the flavors, always very tasty, packed with 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, and a lot of the bars, 4 grams sugar, 4 grams net carbs. You can't go wrong. Just go check them out at their website, builtbar.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your first order. If you've never ordered from them before, use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off over at builtbar.com. What are you waiting for? Holidays are coming up. You know you're going to be eating things you shouldn't be eating. Make a healthy choice. Make a healthy decision. Try a Built Bar today. Going along here, Locked On SEC. Let's get to our honorable mentions from Week 5 in the SEC. A lot of winners and losers, and there were some people who did some good things. So let's hand out some honors. We'll start with Mississippi State quarterback Will Rogers. I think Rogers deserves a lot of respect for how he played this week against A&M. They found a way to win. He threw for over 400 yards. That's a really good A&M secondary when it's all said and done. He was sacked 3 times, but he hung in there. Threw 3 more touchdown passes this week. Will Rogers now has 14 touchdowns and just 2 INTs on the season. He has really improved his game in his sophomore year, and he helped the Bulldogs snap their 2-game losing streak this week. Another honorable mention this week, I'm giving it to Shane Beamer and South Carolina. Kind of the quiet game of the weekend, but kudos to the Gamecocks. They took care of business, beat Troy 23-14. They had a rough 2 weeks, losing to Georgia and Kentucky. So they snapped out with a win to improve to 3-2. They struggled to run the football on Troy, but Luke Doty, he threw for 255 and a touchdown. The South Carolina defense made plays when they needed to, and now they get ready for a road trip to Tennessee. So good to see South Carolina back in the win column. Another honorable mention of the weekend, I've got LSU wide receiver Kayshon Boutte, one of the biggest bright spots on a struggling LSU team this year. It's been their sophomore wide receiver, Kayshon Boutte. It's 6 catches for 127 yards and a touchdown in their loss to Auburn. He had a 55-yard catch very early in the game. Caught another big one on LSU's late drive in the fourth quarter where they were trying to go win the game. Ultimately, they reviewed it, said Boutte bobbled the ball as he fell out of bounds, and it was ruled not a catch. Had they upheld it, man, he would have had even higher numbers this week. 30 catches for 436 yards and 9 receiving touchdowns this season. He has been a monster when it comes to catching the football. The good news for LSU, he's got another year after this. Question is, who will be his head coach next year? But shout out to Kayshon Boutte. Another honorable mention of the weekend, I got Chris Rodriguez, the Kentucky running back. 19 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown this week for Rodriguez. But most importantly, no fumbles this week for Rodriguez. He has had an issue as of late giving up the football. He's having a very nice season for the Cats. 104 carries for over 600 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. He is an important piece of Kentucky's 5-0 start to the season so far. So shout out to Chris Rodriguez. He should have a nice day running the football against LSU this coming weekend. Lastly, another honorable mention, I've got Stetson Bennett in here, the Georgia backup quarterback. He admitted this week that he considered transferring in the offseason, but opted to stick it out, and he has played an important role for Georgia. Spot starting several times already this year for the injured JT Daniels. Daniels missed his second game, not feeling 100%, still coming back from that injury. Bennett's numbers were not great. He was just 7 for 11 for 72 yards passing. Ran the offense well, primarily handing the ball off to rush for almost 300 yards from the Georgia backfield. But Bennett, he has run the show well in the absence of JT Daniels. So shout out to Stetson Bennett getting the job done. He gets an honorable mention. And there you have it. That is our SEC Week 5 winners, losers, and honorable mention. I mean, we talk about separating the men from the boys. We found this week Arkansas very humbled. LSU humbled. Georgia, the real deal. Alabama, the real deal. Florida humbled, and Kentucky, we're starting to see maybe the real deal. Now, a Kentucky-Georgia game down the road is a big one, but Kentucky can continue to prove it themselves. I know LSU's struggling right now, but they host LSU this week, and that'll be a big one, and we'll actually be there in attendance for that game. So looking forward to going up to Lexington and taking in that one. That is just about going to do it for me, Chris Gordy, here on Locked On SEC. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And a recommendation, make your second listen to one of our great SEC podcasts. You've got Locked On Razorbacks with John Neighbors. You've got Locked On LSU with Matt Moscona, talking a lot about Coach O's future. A lot of great podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network, covering all your favorite teams during the most important time of the year, make or break season, the middle of college football. Who's going to make it to the playoff? Who's going to win the conference? Who's not? Who's done? Who's already putting their coach in the hot seat? We'll talk about it all throughout this week. Very special guest on the podcast tomorrow. You do not want to listen. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On SEC and follow us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.